Okay, so this is question number 1 from exam 1. So this is the review, exam review, question number 1. So question number 1 on the exam review questions says, use the following accounts and information to prepare in good form an income statement, a retained earnings statement, and a balance sheet for Pierce Industries for the month ended August 31st, 2019. So you want to make sure that before you're going through this, that you've already done this on your own. If you haven't, you may gain a little bit of information, but if you didn't do this on your own, you're really missing kind of what the point of this is, and that is that you're double checking your answers to make sure you understand how to do things, okay? So if you haven't done it, then you should be taking notes and completing it as you go, so it gives you one more thing to study, okay? But you really should have the questions done before going through them, before doing this point. So, okay. So we always do them in order: income statement, retained earnings statement, and balance sheet. We are doing them on the exam just like we did them in chapter 1. We are not doing a classified balance sheet, but we have a question around the classified balance sheet items, and I will talk a little bit more about that a little bit. Okay. So we start with the income statement. So at the top of the income statement goes the name of the company, and this is Pierce Industries. And the name of the statement is the income statement. That goes next. And then the next is either for the month ended or for the year ended. And this one says that they want a month ended. So it'll be for the month ended, and then you would put the date August 31st, 2019, okay? Now, the first section of this income statement is the revenue section. So you have the title, revenues, and then you would look through your problem to see where the revenue is or how much the revenue is. So you'll probably only have one revenue. The most you would ever have is 2, but you'll probably just have 1 right now. So our revenue for this problem is service revenue. And service revenue is $25,700. Okay. And that's all we have for revenue. So we would then go to the next section, which is expenses. And we would label that section expenses. And then we would go through and we would list the expenses. And the order you put the expenses in doesn't matter. I always tell people follow what's in the book because it helps you when you're doing your homework. So we have salaries and wage expense, and that's $10,000. The next expense that we have is rent expense. And rent expense is $3,400. Oops. And then the next expense we have, oops, I just messed that one up. Hold on, rent expense. The next expense we have after that is insurance expense. And insurance expense is $1,200. So then we're going to total those 3 up and move the total over to the right there. And that's the total expenses is $14,600. And you label that total expenses. Then what we're going to do is we're going to subtract what went out in expenses from what came in revenue. So we have $25,700 minus $14,600. That gives us $11,100. And what came in revenue is more than what went out. So that's called a net income. And you will not see a net loss in this class. So that is the net income. So that's the income statement for this problem. So we're going to go down to the next part, which is the retained earnings statement. So name of the company, Pierce Industries. This is the retained earnings statement. And this is the same date as the income statement for the month ended August 31, 2019. Okay. Now, the first box is the retained earnings at the beginning of the period. And since this is a monthly statement, it's going to be the first day of the month. If it was a yearly statement, it would be the first day of the year. So this is for August 1. And if your problem does not tell you what the retained earnings are, you assume it is 0, but they actually tell you in this problem that your beginning retained earnings are $25,900. Now, even if it listed retained earnings $25,900 and did not have the word beginning, that would still be your beginning number because you don't know what your retained earnings are until you do the math. So anytime they list a number for retained earnings, it's your beginning. And you're going to do add net income, and the net income comes from up above where you figured it out, which was $11,100 is your net income. And now you're going to add those two together. So you're going to add the 25,900 and the 11,100, and that comes to 37,000. Okay. The next step is you're going to do less, and it's going to be dividends. Oops, dividends. And in our problem, it says the dividends was $3,000. So we have 37,000 minus 3,000. That gives us a total of $34,000. And that ending number is called the retained earnings. And then it's the last date of the month. So this is retained earnings, August 31. So that's the retained earnings statement for this problem. And then the last statement you do is the balance sheet. So for the balance sheet, we're going to put the same company name, Pierce Industries. It's called the balance sheet. And then the date here is just the date. It's not for the month ended. It's just the date, August 31, 2019. Okay. All right, so the first section on the retained earnings is the assets, and the title goes in the top center, assets. And the assets go in order of liquidity, and you're going to follow the model I pointed out in the book earlier in the class. But we always start with cash. Cash is always first. And
Professor?
Hold on one second. Okay, so we list cash. Cash is listed first, and cash is 25,900. The next that we would list would either be short-term investments or debt investments, short-term. We don't have either for this problem, so then we go to the next item, which would be accounts receivable. And the accounts receivable is 5,400. We would then go to supplies for this problem, and that's 1,400. And then the last would be buildings. And buildings is 63,000. Now, again, you'll want to make sure on your note cards that you have the list of the assets in order of liquidity, okay? So that way you'll have something to look at, because I even have a hard time remembering the order. So, okay, so now we total all that together, and that comes to 90,400, and that is called our total assets. Then we go to the next section. So the next section is called the liabilities and stockholders' equity section.
Somebody said that the cash amount was incorrect.
Okay, so I put the cash amount wrong. I had the total right, but the cash amount is 20,600. There we go. All right. So say if I would have checked my math, I would have known that it was wrong, but I didn't check my math. Okay, so there we go. So now we have it correct for the cash amount for the assets is 20,600. Sorry about that. Okay, so now we have the next section is liabilities and stockholders' equity. So liabilities and stockholders' equity is the title of the section. And the order you put the liabilities in doesn't matter, but again, I would follow the model that's in the book. So we title the first section, which is liabilities, and the first one would be notes payable. And the notes payable is 3,300. The next one would be accounts payable. And accounts payable is 1,100. We would then, that's all we have for liabilities. We would add those two together, and that would be 4,400. And we label that total liabilities. And then we would go to the next section, which is the stockholders' equity section. Stockholders' equity. And we would list the items just like we've done in the past, which is common stock goes first. And common stock is 52,000. And then the next is retained earnings. And the retained earnings is 34,000. We would then add those two together. They come to 86,000. And that's called total stockholders' equity. Then what we would do is we would add together the total liabilities of 4,400 and the total stockholders' equity of 86,000. And we would come to 90,400. That is called total liabilities and stockholders' equity. Okay, so we want to make sure that our total assets equal the total liabilities and stockholders' equity. That's the formula. Assets equals liabilities plus stockholders' equity. So they are both 90,400. So that one is then correct. So that's question number 1 for exam review 1.